podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the neighborhood. On this episode, we're going to be discussing the latest installment in the long-running Kirby series from Nintendo and HAL Laboratory, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And to do that, we have brought Caleb Van Nice back to the show. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Apparently, you and Dylan just can't be on the same episode.
I guess not. I don't know what that's. It's probably because I only play Nintendo games and Dylan only plays Xbox games, and never the twain shall meet.
Like when we were planning for this episode, I was like, do you want to be on it as kind of maybe just like another perspective or something? You know, he hasn't played it. He's like, sure, that'd be fine. And then it just so happened that tonight didn't work for him. So, you know, don't take it personally.
I'm going to only
do it.
exclusively
Could be
take
drama.
it personally. That was my entire plan.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, we'll follow this drama to its ultimate conclusion.
As me and Dylan will one day have an episode without you, probably. That'll be how it resolves.
What game could that possibly be?
That's an excellent question. I feel like there's an obvious answer to that, but I don't know what it is.
I don't either. Maybe he'll listen to this and he'll let us know. But no, nevertheless, it's good to have you on. Obviously, we're talking Nintendo. Your other appearance on the show so far has been Metroid, which is another Nintendo game. So
I really am only here for Nintendo games. I'm your Nintendo guy on call. As a Nintendo game, call me again in September when you want to talk about Splatoon 3 or something.
I may actually play that. It might be the one where I jump in. The series has missed me up to this point, but
genuinely underrated Nintendo. We can't get on that rabbit trail. But genuinely underrated Nintendo series. It's very good.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in here. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a 2022 platform video game developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo for the Nintendo Switch. It is the 13th mainline installment in the Kirby series, as well as the first game in the series in full 3D, excluding spin-offs. The player controls Kirby in an adventure through the titular Forgotten Land called the New World to rescue Waddle Dees kidnapped by the ferocious Beast Pack. To complete each stage to save Waddle Dees, Kirby can use a wide range of copy abilities to help battle enemies and progress. The game was well received by critics, with some calling it one of the best games in the series. It sold 2.1 million units in 2 weeks. Pretty impressive.
It is. We'll get to our final thoughts. I'm just saying I wouldn't go with best game in the series, but it is definitely one of the highlights of the series.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get into all that. So usually when we do these kind of game-specific episodes, you know, we throw out a spoiler warning. We probably will at some point spoil things where story is related, or, you know, in the case of like Elden Ring, for example, bosses or gameplay things that are supposed to be kind of like a surprise. For this game, really, I think the only thing might be like the ending moments that are like maybe super spoilery. The rest of it is pretty standard fare, I would say. So, I mean, we can kind of save that for like the end of the conversation. Be warned that, you know, we may drift into what you consider spoilers, but it's a Kirby game.
Right. I feel like even talking about parts of the game that you might want to save as a surprise, you can talk around that. Like if you don't want to know what, for example, what the final upgrade for Sword is because you want to be surprised by it or whatnot, it's easy to talk about that stuff without talking about that stuff. And even if you know that stuff, it's Kirby. Again, it's just sort of like,
I feel like it's fair just to throw it out there that when we deep dive into these games, we may touch on things that are considered spoilers. But for a game like this, you know, it's not like we're giving away the big shocking moments of The Last of Us Part 2 or something. Like
right.
It's Kirby.
Exactly.
And speaking of Kirby, this game, I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the few games that I have rolled credits on this year. I didn't like 100% it or do all the collectibles or all that kind of stuff, but I did play all the way through it and tried to get as much stuff as I could throughout the levels on like the initial playthrough. What has been your kind of experience going into this game and
I
playing it?
beat it. I have all the ability upgrades. I beat the post game. There's like a post game
Right.
bonus world, for lack of a better term, and I beat that. I also tried to get as many things as I could during the initial playthrough, and I think I beat almost every of the like little challenge rooms. Every ability has like a challenge room or two,
Right.
where
Yeah.
those are scattered about on the map. So I played as many of those as I could. So I played it thoroughly. I didn't get it 100%. Like I didn't go. I might at some point, but I've got enough going on that was kind of my barometer is like, oh, did you beat it? Yes. Did you get all the ability upgrades, which is kind of the major thing you can do without being nitpicky about getting 100%? Yes. Did I play the post game world? Yeah. So I feel comfortable being like, yeah, I've seen basically everything this game has to offer. I don't think, yeah, I never beat the second stadium. There's 2 or 3 levels of the stadium, and whatever, I can't remember if there's 2 or 3. Whatever the last one is, I didn't beat it. So I definitely beat the first one. If there were 3 levels to the stadium, I beat the second one. But if there were only 2, I didn't.
Got you. I didn't do the stadium at all. Is that just like a boss rush mode thing?
It is, but there is, and I don't really think of this as a spoiler because it occurs so early in the game that it's not really a surprise.
Yeah.
It is the only way to like see Meta Knight in the game.
Yeah. I remember seeing him like fly in when you unlock it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the first round of the stadium. The final boss is Meta Knight.
Nice. That's cool. Well, I guess where we can kind of start is the kind of departure from the traditional gameplay that this game took. It was first sort of shown off with a almost post-apocalyptic Last of Us-esque kind of trailer where Kirby was just wandering around these 3D environments and everybody was wondering like, what is this? What is going on? This looks crazy. And then it was followed up by Mouthful Mode, that trailer, and it was like, oh, this is just a Kirby game.
Yeah.
And I think that really it was I mean, you kind of explore a few of those sort of somewhat real world seeming environments, but a lot of it is pretty fantastical too. I don't think the whole game maintained that sort of vibe of post-apocalyptic thing that first trailer was going for.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, because I'd say yes and no. I think it's the closest I can give it to any of the other Kirby games would be Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, which I really think this is kind of a spiritual successor to. If any specific Kirby game, it's that one. And that this is the first Kirby game in a very long time where I'm like, oh, the geography of this feels kind of like an actual place, not super realistic, but like, oh, they thought about this, they did stuff like this, and there is like little bits of lore you can get about this ruined world that Kirby was in, and it has a feeling like not super depressing post-apocalyptic, but like post-apocalyptic. There was a different civilization here, it has collapsed, and then a new civilization has emerged on top of that. So it's more like you're playing through a Kirby game, but occasionally you'll stumble through like an old mall or whatnot. Right. That's a big part, or a carnival. It's not as forward. You're right. It's not as forward or in your face as the first trailer was like. Look at it. It's like The Last of Us, but with Kirby. It's a Kirby game, but part of it is that kind of like, oh yeah, no, this used to be a place where people lived.
Yeah, so the game is broken, like there's an overworld, and then you go into a zone, like an area, and that area is themed, like you mentioned, a carnival. And then there are multiple levels you can go into that will all be carnival themed, carnival based. And then there will be those little like side missions, like you were talking about, the ability, either the Mouthful Mode or the copy ability challenge rooms where you're timed or you're scored based on your time using just that ability and getting through like a set of puzzles or combat challenges. And then when you complete all that, there's a boss at the end. You defeat that boss, and then you unlock the next zone. So it's a very linear game, but when you go into those individual levels, there's a little bit of room to explore and poke around, but you kind of go from room to room within those levels. You go from area to area. Once you move into the next area or room, there's no going back to that previous room. It pushes you forward.
Which is for good and for ill, because on the one hand, it has a very nice sense of progression. It's very kind of simple, obvious where you go sort of thing. But on the other hand, if you're trying to collect like all the hidden Waddle Dees and all the little secret things, it's you go to the next world, you go to the next level and you get the next like hidden Waddle Dee, and your little counter at the bottom that shows which one you've got tells you when you missed one, and you're just like, well, dang it, I missed that one. No idea where he was in the previous room. I'll have to replay the entire level later if I want to find him.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the Waddle Dees, which we're assuming you're familiar with Kirby, but they're like they're the little red guys that kind of look like Kirby but a little bit different. And you are trying to collect them in the level. They're captured, they're in cages, and you collect just a base amount by beating the level. But there's usually between like 3 and 5 hidden ones throughout the level. And so as you find them, you send them back to your hub, which is Waddle Dee Town, and that hub slowly grows over the course of the game based on however many Waddle Dees you've found, and you unlock things like the Coliseum or like a restaurant where you can buy food and stuff, or you unlock the ability upgrading place. Kirby has a little house there where he can take a nap and where you can like display a few of your little trophies that you found throughout the game. Little things like that.
Yeah. I also have to say, I really appreciate, speaking of both Waddle Dees and those little trophies, the way you can tell if a Waddle Dee is near is you can hear them kind of calling out for help. I find it really funny. The game just kind of dunks on the Waddle Dees the entire time. Any of their trophy descriptions are like, maybe if they work together, they could break it. Nah, they're too pathetic. They can't. It's like the trophy descriptions just completely throw Waddle Dees under the bus. Like, oh, these poor things. They can't do anything. You're gonna have to do everything for them. They can't manage. Yeah, and you also, an interesting aspect, because I knew about find the little Waddle Dees. An interesting aspect to each level is there's also, for lack of a better word, side quests, like missions in each one as well. Like, not just do this activity and you find one of the 3 to 5 hidden Waddle Dees, but like each level also has anywhere between 3 to 5 just little do this thing and you get a bonus Waddle Dee.
Oh, right, yeah.
Go to this one hidden room, or
find all the ducks and take them back to their mom.
Right, just these tiny little things scattered throughout the level that don't immediately, like, you don't unlock one of the hidden Waddle Dees by doing it. It just seems like this weird thing you got to do. And then at the end of the level, it's like, you did this, so here's another Waddle Dee. You did this, so here's another Waddle Dee.
Exactly, yeah. So the Waddle Dees are just basically like kind of your grade or your currency at the end of the level, and you want to max that out. What did you think about the transition or growth or whatever of how this gameplay differs from like the traditional 2D Kirby games?
I think it did a really good job of pushing the series into the third dimension, because that has been the question since basically Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards came out and was 2D still. Like, as everyone else was like, Mario's in 3D, Zelda's in 3D, Donkey Kong's in 3D. Basically, every one of their franchises that was like a 2D side scroller, top down, whatever, is now in 3D. Look at this. And Kirby has his N64 game, and it's like, it's still 2D. And then skips over the GameCube other than Air Ride, because the GameCube Kirby fell apart, and so they got Return to Dreamland on the Wii, still in 2D. And then Star Allies, still 2D. Like, the never has gone into 3D for a full game for, and so it finally happens with this one. And it does a pretty good job. It still plays like a Kirby game, if that makes any sense. Like, it still has the same sort of... Kirby games aren't hard. They're kind of just fun, pleasant, goof around in and get through the level kind of jaunts. But it feels right. Like, it takes a little bit of getting used to, or at least it did for me, because it's just sort of like, oh, I now have to consider with how I navigate a three-dimensional world with Kirby, or stuff like I have to aim when I'm using Ice Kirby or something like that, where instead it's just left or right, you breathe ice or whatnot. But it does a good job of maintaining the feel of a Kirby game, like the kind of lighthearted, playful, but like still poke around, explore, solve puzzles sort of thing. I think part of that is because it's more, we already talked about how it's linear and it's room by room. It's more Crash Bandicoot than it is Super Mario 64.
Yeah, or the Mario 3D World. games come to mind too.
Yeah, it's very Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land. So I think for the most part, it really works. I will say it does take advantage of that to have a little bit more those side missions I talked about a minute ago. It really loves its little puzzles and hidden things and extra stuff to explore. So more so than any of the 2D games, it's like, okay, you can navigate your way through this level usually pretty easily. But if you want to find all the little knickknacks and do all the little things, you're going to have to scour. If I do have a knock against its level design, it is that Nintendo usually has this very like, okay, we want a low skill floor, but a high skill ceiling. This game is very easy to play through, and it really only gets a little difficult towards the end. But even a novice player with a little bit of determination can beat it. It's not hard to just physically get yourself to the end of the game. If you want to accomplish everything, though, you've got to be you have to put in a lot of work. Is kind of Nintendo's thing. And with Kirby, I feel this Kirby game in particular, I feel that the difficulty spike between like most of the game and most of the secrets and like the top 2% of the secrets is like a big old spike because
Right.
there's most of the hidden waddle dees or most of the little side quests are like, okay, if you spend time and put in just like the bare minimum of, all right, I'm going to look for them, you'll find them. Not hard. But there's just a handful where you're going to be like replaying the same level over and over again, scratching your head like, I don't get it. Where is it? What am I missing here?
Yeah, for sure. I going back to what you said about Kirby's being traditionally easy games, that's something that I've talked about before is yeah, they're very easy to just play, but if you want to find all the secret stuff, that's where they kind of hide that challenge for
Yeah.
more experienced players. And I think that it was a smart move for them to do the kind of fixed camera room by room 3D rather than like a 3D Mario or something, because Kirby being kind of like this very approachable, anybody can play kind of game, this kind of middle ground of being 3D, but not like you have to all of a sudden know how to use two control sticks or something like that. Like I feel like
Right.
this would be a good game for my daughter to kind of get used to 3D games with, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
that kind of middle ground where it's a very approachable game for kids or for beginner players because it's not demanding a lot of technical skill from the player.
Right. Once you kind of get the hang of what it wants you to do, you can get through pretty much all of the game. And it's also, in a lot of ways, very forgiving.
Yeah.
You can screw up and it's going to be like, no, it's okay. It's all right. It's fine. Even doing all the different stuff I did, and even going after some of the post game stuff and some of the harder boss rushes and stuff, I probably died, like lost a life less than 20 times through the entire game.
Yeah.
Like
I think I only ever died to bosses.
That's generally what it was. Yeah.
The bosses could hit you pretty hard, and if you didn't really know what you're supposed to do or what the like best ability was to take into the fight, you could end up hurting yourself. And that's another thing I think that they do that helps with difficulty is the abilities. It's like finding one that works for you or finding one that makes things a little bit easier. I upgraded the like spike ability to where it was like the big kind of crystal one that you could just roll around, and I basically just rolled my way through the like back half of the game with that ability because you could just roll into anything. You would pick up stuff and throw it whenever you let go of the ability, so you had a projectile. And like for bosses, you could just spike up, park next to them, and the whole time they're touching you, they're taking damage. And so it was my favorite ability by far.
I thought gun was incredibly overpowered in a good way. Like if you upgraded the gun to the top, you could just destroy most anything fairly easily. And Hammer's final upgrade, minor spoiler, Hammer's one of the two that you can upgrade to a 4th level instead of just a 3rd level. And Hammer's 4th level upgrade, really, really, really powerful. And if you do the charge like swing to its fullest extent there, it takes most bosses, like it takes like anywhere between a quarter and half of their health. Like it'll just annihilate things. So it's a very forgiving game and it'll let you cheese a lot of things. Speaking of abilities and speaking of ease of use for new players, it's got a 2-player mode. That's a lot of fun. That's how my brother and sister went through the game. Second player plays as Bandana Waddle Dee, who is a special Waddle Dee who's been Kirby's friend for a while and who uses a spear.
How was that? Because I didn't ever try. I knew it was an option, but I never really explored it. I was curious if it was like Mario Odyssey, where player 2 just kind of like barely controls like a useless character, or if it's actually like you
No,
can
no, no.
contribute.
This is actually the entire, because I played the first couple levels as Bandana Waddle Dee while my brother played through the first couple levels, and then I started my own game as Kirby. But Bandana Waddle Dee is a fully playable character. Like, player one is Kirby and controls kind of where the camera takes its priority. So
yeah,
it's,
right.
yeah. But Bandana Waddle Dee is an entirely separate playable character who can do stuff on his own. What's really interesting is he has basically the spear ability. Little Kirby nerd note. Bandana Waddle Dee first showed up as a fully playable character in Kirby Return to Dreamland for the Nintendo Wii. And in that game, Spear was just one of the abilities Kirby could get. And the thing with that game is each of the other three, it had 4 players, and each of the other 3 characters besides Kirby, each was, Bandana Waddle Dee, Meta Knight, and King Dedede. And all of them basically had like one of the Kirby's abilities. So King Dedede had all the same moves as Hammer Kirby. Meta Knight had all the same abilities as Sword Kirby, and Bandana Waddle Dee had all the same abilities as Spear Kirby. Spear Kirby is not in this game, but Bandana Waddle Dee still basically has all of the moves from the Spear ability, which is just kind of a neat little
it's interesting
note that they like. We didn't just copy paste a different ability. We kept his shtick, but it's not something you would play unless you are player 2 in Asgard.
Right. It's unique to him.
Right. But it's a handy little thing. You can do a lot of cool little abilities. It's every bit as nuanced as a normal copy ability. So yeah, no, it's a fully structured thing, which is, again, for that easy to approach angle. Really nice if you're like, okay, if you want to introduce a child or someone who's never played Kirby before to it, it's like, here, you be player 2, but you are going to get a full experience. It's not just like this, oh, I can press a button and maybe help. It's like, no, you're going to play the game too, basically.
Does the game adapt to having a second player? Like, are there more enemies or anything, or is it the same levels?
Didn't pay that close attention. Like I said, I only played the first few levels as him.
Right.
But I didn't pay that much attention. I imagine if there's any difficulty scaling to match, it'd probably be something akin to what wild mode is. By the way, did you play the game in the normal mode or in wild mode? Like, because it gives you that option. It's like, hey, enemies will be harder, but you'll get more points.
Normal was like the super easy, right?
Yeah.
I think I did wild. I think I did whatever was like the slightly more challenging. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure when I reading the descriptions, whichever one wasn't the easiest was the one I picked.
Yeah, that's what I did the same thing, because again, Kirby games are easy, and I'm like, okay, is this hard, or is this just like not incredibly easy? Like, is that what it was?
Yeah.
And it's for the most part, yeah, it's still not difficult. It's like I said, through the entire game, I only died maybe 20 times.
Yeah, for me, it was really just bosses and like being ill-equipped, or like I'm pretty sure I died to DDD when I first fought him, but I was also like trying to fight him playing in handheld in like a car with like no sound and like a glare on my screen and stuff. So, not
no, it was the controller's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
my batteries died.
If I died to something that wasn't a boss, it was like a stage hazard that I just like kept screwing up at. Like I had already taken too much hit and I'd fallen down something or whatnot. It's not a difficult game, even on their quote unquote harder mode. But I have to imagine if there's any difficulty scaling for Waddle Dee, that would have to be it.
We touched on Waddle Dee Town briefly earlier, but what did you think about that?
I liked it. It's not super complicated. If I have a complaint about it, and I don't, it's actually like just incredibly charming. Like it's Kirby's entire thing is, what if this entire thing was incredibly charming, and Waddle Dee Town is incredibly charming. You get the little Waddle Dees, you can wave at them and they wave back, etc., etc. My only complaint is that as much as it adds a nice little bit of variety, you can go like play. You get the restaurant and you can buy food, which, heals you later, or heals you now, because an interesting choice they made is you don't just get full health back after each level.
Right.
You have to get it. So you can stop at Waddle Dee Town and get a snack and refill your health. Or you can save that snack for later.
But yeah, you can also take a nap to refill your health.
You can also take a nap to refill your health. But you can also play a little mini game at the restaurant that's just kind of like this fun little, a bunch of Waddle Dees line up and have their own orders, and you have to get each Waddle Dee whatever food they ordered, and it's a cute, fun little mini game, nice little diversion. But that's kind of the extent. There's the weapon shop, clearly, where you can upgrade the copy abilities. There's the tournament. There's a fishing mini game. There's a little rolling ball mini game, like 3D maze kind of mini game. but it's not something you're gonna spend a whole lot of time in. Like you're not gonna. It's not like an additional entire little mode. Like I think some people might see them make a big deal out of Waddle Dee Town and be like, "Oh, so I can basically have this little town management thing on top of it." It's not. It's a cute little thing you can do a couple things in, but it's basically like the menu, but a little town because you can go watch old cutscenes. You can do the sound test, that sort of stuff. You can go upgrade your copy abilities in the little weapon shop or choose. That is the nice part, is the upgrade shop doesn't just let you upgrade the abilities. It lets you choose out of any of the abilities you've found so far and adjust what you want the abilities to be. So in case, just as a quick primer on the upgrade system for abilities. This is the first Kirby game where you can do that, where you can get your sword has a few levels, your hammer has a few levels, fire, all of it can be upgraded. Usually twice, so 3 levels. There are 2 items that have a secret 4th level. I already said hammer is one of them. And then there are 2 items that only have one additional level, which are, those ones are kind of harder to find abilities anyway, and they're very useful. Those second stages of both are very useful. But the thing about them is once you've upgraded, it's not necessarily a permanent upgrade. What it does is it adjusts. Let's say you upgrade sword to level 2. You can then, at the shop, set it so every time you get sword anywhere in the game, you get the level 2 sword, and then the level 3 sword once you've unlocked that, etc. Or you can always go back and say, you know what, for whatever reason, I liked the way level 2 ice worked better than my level 3 ice. You can go adjust it, or you can be like, I kind of miss how level 1 sword, the little hat, or whatever, just aesthetic preference, and just go knock it back down to that. So you get to pick what you want the default setting of each copy ability to be, and you can equip any copy ability from right there. So if you just are like, you're playing a level and you keep getting stuck and you're like, you know what? If I had my favorite spike or my favorite gun or the super hammer or whatnot, I could get through this part really easily. You can go back to Waddle Dee Town, go into the item shop and equip it. And taking a page out of Smash Brothers, there's even a little sandbag guy you can beat the crap out of and practice with it right over in the next room. So
yeah, you mentioned how the town isn't really like a management, like a town management game or anything like that. I kind of viewed it as like just a visual representation of my progress.
Yeah, and that's basically the best way to read it.
Yeah, it's like the more you do, the more you've accomplished in the game, the more bustling and vibrant your little town becomes. And then there's like some little diversions, but for the most part, for me, it was land, run into the item shop, do my upgrades, pick my ability, and bounce. I didn't spend a whole lot of time there, but I did like it visually and aesthetically.
Oh yeah, no, I loved it. I want to manage anyone's expectations because I saw the Waddle Dee Town in the first trailer. I'm like, oh, it's cool. You get on a little town to maybe like screw around and play around in. And it's like, yeah, you do, but you can only do like 3 things.
Exactly.
I will say I loved the little blacksmith Waddle Dee. Love him. Great. I just like that guy.
He kind of reminded me of like Monster Hunter. In the Monster Hunter games, you have like these very kind of animated smiths and stuff, and then you have like the little cat that cooks for you, and you get like a little cutscene of the cat every time you make food. And so that was because every time you bring him an ability, he's so excited to see it, and every time he upgrades, it does this little cutscene of him like working on his forge and stuff. And so I thought that was a nice little touch.
Oh yeah, it's very cute. Which is just, again, this entire game, the entire series MMO, but this game captures it really well. Just like, hey, isn't this just charming and pleasant? It's an aesthetically like pleasing and like relaxing game to play.
Well, let's talk about something that when it was announced was maybe not aesthetically pleasing or relaxing and kind of caught people off guard and became a meme for a little while. And that's the mouthful mode, where basically Kirby can
eat, but not entirely eat.
Yeah, find a car or a vending machine or something. And for whatever reason, that particular item is too big for him to fully consume, or maybe he just chooses not to because he knows it's useful. But he basically just like wraps himself around it and takes its shape. And so basically what these boil down to are just like level and environmental specific abilities for certain puzzles solving. You can swallow the car, which is what they showed off, which I had a lot of fun with. They do some like speed challenges and like obstacle courses with it, which I thought were fun. The vending machine, which allows you to shoot cans rapid fire. You can swallow a staircase, which is a staircase.
Yeah.
You can swallow. I think one of my favorites that I think I wasn't expecting to really like as much as I did, but I liked how they did it, and I liked the visuals of the level they used it in, was the light bulb.
The light bulb's great, and honestly, more video games need to do that 90s laser tag era kind of aesthetics.
Yeah. It was very neon, and
Yeah.
I really like the black with like the neon
The black
lights and
lights
colors and
all that
stuff
sort
on
of
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
That was cool. What I realized about partway through the game is basically a problem the Kirby series has. It's not like a giant fatal flaw or anything, but it is a problem the Kirby series has had, is that due to the nature of the game, you have all this variety in terms of your moveset. You can get new copy abilities, and a lot of the Kirby games have, 30, 40. This has actually got a fairly low amount of copy abilities because of the upgrade system. There's only like 15 or so, give or take. And, there's games with like 30, 40, stuff like that. But because of how Kirby works and how you're always changing them out and how you can lose them and how all that sort of stuff, very few times are the levels designed around a particular copy abilities moveset.
Right.
It has to be designed so that you can complete the level without it. So if you're supposed to have fire, well, they can't actually force you to have fire, because what if you've lost fire? What if you get hurt halfway through the fire section and you lose your ability and it shatters and you're stuck, you're screwed. Oh no.
Right.
So the mouthful mode's kind of a compromise, because most of the mouthful modes are basically just weirder takes on, like car, the most famous. It's basically wheel Kirby, but with a car instead of just a single tire. Water Kirby has been an ability before, so the water balloon Kirby that can spray water is basically just that. But what they kind of allow is that the level is designed around those sections. Those sections you can only get the mouthful modes in those sections, and you have to use them to complete those sections. So it's basically like a contextual copy ability that you're sort of forced to use to navigate the level. And it makes for like a nice change of pace. And this isn't a bad thing because of how much you can change and how much you can control what you have on you through copy abilities and stuff like that. Kirby games can get a little repetitive because it's kind of the same thing. Get through this, chunk of level and solve any puzzles you find, kill all the enemies, make it to the end. By having those mouthful mode sections, it kind of changed it up so it's not the exact same kind of thing. It's like, okay, now you're in. One of my favorites was the ring mouth that you could make a little gust of air. So you either had these fun puzzles around using that to blow little puffs of air to unlock puzzles or do stuff, or the really fun thing, which was the little boat that you would hop in and use that to kind of like push yourself forward and navigate, and then sometimes have to solve puzzles while being in the boat. So yeah, it was when it was first announced, it's a very weird looking thing, but it does add for like a nice change of pace. I was never really going, man, I got to do the car again or something like that. They don't overuse it, but it is a nice like, okay, it's been a minute.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed them in general. It took me a while trying to do one of the earlier car like speed challenges to remember that you could hold the boost button.
Yeah.
I thought it was more like a punch through, like a dash thing. And so I was trying to like dash my way through this course. And then when I realized you could hold it down, then it was a breeze. But it took me a few tries to like remember that was an option.
No, I had a similar thing where the first couple times I tried to, and then I realized I could hold down, and then I almost never let it go. Like my thought process was, I'm basically letting it go to break. That was about it.
Yeah, no, those were really fun. You talked about, when we were talking about the light bulb, you mentioned, the striking visuals and the neon and like how more games would do that. I was kind of impressed in general with not necessarily the fidelity of this game, but just the style and the art direction and there were moments I took a few screenshots where I was like, is this Bloodborne? Because you're like going up this
the
like
Winter
Gothic
Town
castle.
Yeah, the winter. Okay, so like it's a common. I love platformers. They're close to my favorite genre. But there's kind of this stereotype about platformers, and it's mostly true, which is where it's like, oh, you have the grass level, and you have the fire level, and you have the desert level, and you have the ice level. Very
Yep.
generic, very kind of topic, like, this is what you do. It's a platformer. This game does a great job of being like, okay, so its grass level is the Last of Us style ruins. Its ice level is like this, like you said, kind of Bloodborne, kind of Dickensian, like winter Elizabethan Victorian like town. It's just very unique twist on thing. The desert is like these sort of, it's like I'm trying to find the best way. It's like a bazaar, but also like these little resort kind of thing. Like it's kind of like okay, resort destination, but in the desert there's an oasis, that kind of marketplace kind of deal, and so on and so forth. Like each one found fairly clever ways of being like, okay, you get what kind of level it is, like, because each of those, like the grass level, the fire level, the ice level, in most platformers have a purpose, like in terms of like offering you different challenges. It just gets old when all of the aesthetics are kind of the same and there's never any real clever spins on it, to see something where it's like, yeah, we're doing this kind of level, but we are going to make it our own. We are going to make it kind of interesting and different.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was really cool. Another thing that I think really stood out to me in this game was the music, the soundtrack.
Music's great.
Like, there was never really a time where I was like, man, this music's getting annoying. It was always kind of a bop. It was always way more maybe produced or high quality than it needed to be. It seemed like, you'd have full orchestra or choir or different instruments or different things happening. And it was like, I mean, this could have just been a really simple tune in the background, but they
it could have been like a little MIDI looping in the background.
Exactly.
Like, it'd be fine. But no, like, it became a meme basically as soon as the game dropped. King Dedede's new theme, like the orchestration of his theme that plays, I think, during his second boss battle. Because it just goes. It's just very intense, very catchy, very epic. And that one's probably one of the better tracks in the game, but it's not unusual. Like, a lot of them are just really weirdly good.
They took it that extra mile. They put the love and the care in the music, and it really showed. And I played a lot of this game kind of handheld with the volume down, but anytime that I did have it on the TV or was like, on the couch with the volume up louder, I was like, man, this music is solid. Like, it's really good.
Like you said, the entire game, honestly, just feels like a very lovingly crafted thing. Like, they put a lot of effort into it. They put a lot of polish into it. It feels like a complete package.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the last thing that we can really touch on where we might veer the most into spoilers would be the story, the kind of premise for this game, what's going on, and the ending that I think was really awesome. So we will definitely dive into spoilers when we talk about that. But what did you think about the story or the setup for this game?
One of my favorite things about Kirby games is that if you really look into them, they've got some crazy bonkers lore. It's a joke in some circles of the internet that it's like, oh yeah, man, you think Dark Souls lore is intense? Read some Kirby lore, because it's just like cute, pleasant little games, all of them. And then you look into like some of the hidden stuff that's in all of them, like, whoa, a whole bunch of like stuff's going on here. But for all of that, Kirby games, their plots are almost never complicated. They're very simple. They're very cute. I think that works in its favor tremendously. My favorite one is still Kirby Squeak Squad, where the entire game kicks off. There's a whole actual complicated plot going on, but the entire game kicks off because Mouse stole Kirby's dessert. Like one of the thieves took his strawberry shortcake, and Kirby was like, "I want my strawberry shortcake back." And that kickstarts the entire thing. Like the entire time, Kirby's only half cognizant of what's going on. He's just trying to find his shortcake. And this is a similar sort of thing. Kirby just gets kind of pulled into another world along with several other people. And it basically just starts with, oh, I got to go rescue these Waddle Dees. It's actually a more complicated setup than a Kirby game usually gets. Like there's a lot more individual driving forces and stuff. But for a Kirby game, like the story's pretty solid. You don't really have a full picture of what's going on until closer to the end. But once you get there, it's like, okay, this is actually a neat little story. And like you said, once you get to the end, there's some actually pretty wild stuff. Like King Dedede is a heroic semi-sacrifice. You get into the laboratory where all the experiments were done, and it's actually a little unnerving and unsettling. And then you get like the Eldritch Abomination, like Resident Evil style hallway crawling monster that chases you. That thing's pretty messed up, actually. I mean,
the lion that you fight when you're fighting him, it was like, this is full on like a Dark Souls thing with the phases, and felt very like kind of cosmic horror at the end. Like they're playing with powers that they don't understand, and they've unleashed the beast upon the planet. And that boss fight itself was really cool and kind of intense. And then it goes into what you're talking about with like being chased down the hall, and it's like, good Lord, this is it's the classic Anchorman meme of like, well, that escalated quickly. Like it escalates so quickly until you're like, what, he swallows a bus?
Yeah, no, semi-truck. That's his final mouthful mode.
Yeah.
Is he does it, it's basically the car thing, but on steroids. So he swallows a semi-truck instead. It's so good. Like it is such a good little final section there, and it's so intense, and it's again one of the things that I think Kirby games do really well is, there's that joke about Final Fantasy games where it's like level 1 fight a rat, level 32 fight God. And it's kind of the same. Kirby has the same sort of vibes. It always starts out all cute and pleasant. And at the end, you're always fighting like some Lovecraftian horror creature from another dimension. And again, going back to the joke of how complicated, Kirby is actually basically a Lovecraftian horror creature. He's just like an infant. So he's like, yeah, okay, I'll help. So it's always like this clash of two cosmic titans, but one of them is like a beach ball that's pink. But it's just incredibly fun, and like you said, it just escalates to the point where you're just like, holy crap, because at the end the boss is like hurling chunks of a planet at you and stuff, and it's nuts. And in the secret post game stuff, you basically end up fighting like because you go through that post game thing, and it's kind of like a replay of a remix version of all the levels, including harder versions of all the bosses. Then when you think you're about to have to fight the final boss, like remix version of the final boss again, instead it psychs you out. It's like, plot twist, this one obscure deep cut Kirby lore character from this other game is actually here. And it's basically the Kirby universe's version of like the Grim Reaper. And so then you just fight him up. It's
wow. Yeah. I need to go and check out that post game stuff. I don't think I realized that it was all there. I want to go check that out. But yeah, when I played through the ending, and I was just kind of sitting there enjoying every second of it and the escalation and just how like crazy it got. And I think it does a really good job of just ramping up the momentum. And then because, like we've stated, Kirby games aren't difficult, you're kind of just along for the ride. There's not really a major chance you're going to fail out or like break the immersion of the sequence that's happening. And so you just get to kind of enjoy the spectacle. And then at the end of it all, as credits are rolling and everything's kind of happy, you're sitting there and it's like, oh yeah, Kirby is a cosmic god. I forgot until just now. Now I remember that Kirby is just like this world eating, potentially like monstrous little creature, but he's more concerned with eating and taking naps. And so we're all safe for now.
Yeah, no, it's this hilariously ironic thing that the cutest franchise is also like the one with like the most horrifying things going on. It's just everyone's safe and happy because one of the horrifying things that could happen is Kirby, and like you said, he's mostly just like a pleasant little guy. It's incredibly funny because the more or less canonical explanation for why everything is okay is it's like, oh yeah, Kirby just doesn't really care, and he's like 2. So, he just sort of wanders
Right.
around. It's like, I'll help.
But even just the idea of like how he inhales things and like steals their ability, it's like, okay, what is really happening there? We don't want to think about that,
Oh, no, it's one of those weird things where like we've talked about Kirby's games are some of the easiest games around. And it's like, yeah, that's actually like part of why they're so easy. It's like, no, nothing can really hurt Kirby that much.
Exactly. Yeah, which is why he was the only one that survived in Smash Brothers, right?
Exactly.
And he had to bring everybody back. Yeah, it all makes sense. It's all connected. I was thinking about the ending and like the kind of final boss fight in that sequence and everything. It's like if everything in that sequence was a different art style and wasn't so cute, it would be genuinely like terrifying.
Yeah.
And horrific. Like could be like you said, Resident Evil-esque, but it's just because it's so styled so cute and you're fighting like a Madagascar-esque looking lion versus, like a Bloodborne creature is the only reason that it's like, oh, this is fine. This is a kid's game.
I mean, look at Silly Dillo is one of my favorite bosses in the game.
Yeah.
Just because he's an armadillo who looks like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of like cartoon character. And then, but he's like collecting things and hanging them in his little lair and just all this sort of stuff. It's like a really unsettling sort of vibe, but it's like, it's a Kirby game. It's cute.
Exactly. Well, that's about all I had for the game. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or touch on before we roll into our rating?
Not really. No, I think we covered basically everything. Like, genuinely, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it when we rate it, but like genuinely, this is an incredibly pleasant, fun game. I think it's a good introduction to Kirby. If you've never played a Kirby game, it's a perfect place to start. And it's also a nice, solid entry in the series.
And that is a perfect way to transition into our rating system, which is if you have not heard any of our other kind of review episodes that we do or watched our YouTube videos, we do a rating system of S tier through F tier, S being a masterpiece and F being hot garbage. With that being said, Caleb, you were kind of already setting it up with your little blurb there as we went into it. What do you think you would give this game?
I'd give it a B. Like, it's one of the better Kirby games. I'd put it in the top 5 easily, but it's not as good as either Kirby Superstar or Kirby Triple Deluxe, which are kind of my pick. One of those is the best one. But it is a very fun Kirby game, very worth. If you enjoy older Kirby games, you should give this one a shot. If you haven't played a Kirby game in years, you should give this one a shot. Or if you've never played a Kirby game, give it a shot. It's not going to be one of those, oh man, I have to, like, if you don't have a Switch, buy a Switch for this game. It's more of just like, it's a fun game to play. Like, you're not going to have a bad time with it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm right there with you. I would also give this a B. I think that for everything you said, there is nothing wrong with this game, really. Like, it's solid through and through. But yeah, also, like you said, this isn't the game to like rush out and buy a Switch for. I think that's a really good analogy. I think it's going to be one of my go-to games for when my daughter starts actually being able to play games on her own without needing her, handheld. I think it would be a really good introduction to just gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that the game is easy. And I feel like this point gets brought up all the time, and maybe it's like beating a dead horse. But I mean, I love that Nintendo and HAL are smart enough to put stuff in there for seasoned gamers, older gamers, people who've played this series, people who've played other games. It's like, if I really want the challenge, I can find it in there. But if I just want to have a easy breezy time, which is kind of how I approach this game, that's there for me too. The only reason that I got as many collectibles as I did is just because I couldn't not. Like, I'm a kind of a completionist thing.
No, it's a very infectious, like I said, if you do the due diligence in each level, you're going to find 80 to 90% of the collectibles just by playing the game with just a barest minimum of like, well, I'm going to look, You'd have to actually like work harder in some ways to not get most of them. And then it only takes so much work to get most of them. And then here's where the secret sauce is once you've gotten most of them, you're like, well, I'm so close to getting all of them. I might as well just like do that extra little, because I did that. I had to stop myself because I'm like, I don't have enough time to only play this game. I have other things on my docket I need to do. But there were a couple times where I found myself like I'd beat a level and there was one Waddle Dee missing. And I'm like, I think I know what I got to do. I think I can do that. Or like, I'd get to the end of the level and I'd get all the hidden Waddle Dees and I'd get all the little side missions except for one because I didn't know what it is. And each time you beat a level, it reveals to you one of the side missions you didn't get. So if you got all of them, it's just like, here's all the side missions you got. If you miss 3 of them, it will give you one of those 3. It's like, here's what you're supposed to do to accomplish this. And if you get all of them but one, it gives you, the one you haven't found. But I'd get all of them but one, it'd dim me the one I hadn't found. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do that right now. Hang on, just let me go back and get it real quick. So it's just that right amount of like, yeah, but you could go do it. You could, just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of like how in Cuphead, a ridiculously hard game, every time you lose to a boss, they have that little meter at the end that shows you just how close you were to beating that boss. And you're like, okay, let me try again. I can do it this time because they don't have a health bar. But
Right.
Yeah, just a nice little hook, and it works. They know what they're doing over there at Nintendo. Shocking, huh?
Yeah.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and roll into our closing segment for this episode. So normally, for these episodes, if we have 3 people or more, we do a game. Mm-hmm. Caleb's familiar with those. On episodes where we have a little bit more prep time, or when it's just me and Dylan, we'll do one of our questions that we answer that we like to ask our community on Twitter and Instagram. We didn't do either of those for this, but what I did do, I pulled up 2 internet Kirby quizzes, Caleb.
Okay.
And I honestly probably think you can ace these, but I want to see for sure.
Let's find out.
So the first one is from videochums.com/trivia/Kirby. Don't go there and cheat. It's 10 questions, I think. Multiple choice, it looks like. So I will ask you the question, and I guess I'll give you if you know right away, you could just say it. Mm-hmm. If not, I'll give you the 4 options and we'll see how you do. We'll do this first one. Depending on how quickly and well it goes, maybe we'll jump into the other one.
Okie doke.
You ready for this?
Let's see.
What was Kirby named after?
The common story is he was named after a lawyer who helped in Nintendo's case with Universal because of the Donkey Kong dispute.
Okay. Yeah. So the options were a city, a cartoonist, a vacuum, and a lawyer. I probably would have guessed vacuum, to be honest, but we're going to go lawyer. I'm assuming it's going to tell us at the end.
If I'm right or not.
How you did, yeah. Which Kirby game cannot be played on an original Game Boy? So I guess you probably need the options for these. We got Kirby's Star Stacker, Kirby's Block Ball, Kirby's Tilt and Tumble, and Kirby's Pinball Land.
What was the second one?
Block Ball. Kirby's Block Ball.
Yeah, I think it's that one.
Okay. In Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, what do you combine to light Kirby's head on fire?
Oh, that is fire and electricity.
Burning plus spark?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really
what
funny.
Was what was the first... Was that the game where the abilities like just kind of... Where it like shaped... Kirby's shape would like change with the abilities and stuff?
Yeah, he didn't get hats in that one. He just would like...
Morph?
Yeah, so like in Cutter, you wouldn't get a Cutter hat. Kirby would literally just
throw himself.
half his body, and the other half would be.
I remember
just
that.
Like this little, yeah.
That was the first Kirby game where I learned he could actually copy abilities.
Mm-hmm.
After having played at least one all the way through on like my Game Boy Color. Okay, what was the first multiplayer Kirby game? Kirby's Avalanche, Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Dream Course, or Kirby's Star Stacker?
I can't remember which of those came first. Like, I'm gonna go with Dream Course. Not because I have a gut feeling that was before Superstar.
What kind of animal is Kine? Kine, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, he's a fish.
Okay. Halfway there. Which Wii game did Goodfield develop before Kirby's Epic Yarn? Big Brain Academy Wii Degree, Lost in Shadow, Mario Party 9, or Wario Land Shake It?
I'm going to go with Wario Land Shake It.
Okay. That's barely a Kirby question, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, it's very... I'm going off of gut instinct and the kind of cutesy 2D platformer vibe, not so much any actual knowledge.
Which Super Smash Bros. Was the first to feature King Dedede as a fighter?
Super Smash Bros. Brawl. He was supposed to be in as early as the very first Super Smash Bros., but Sakurai was worried he'd be accused of favoritism because, Kirby was his baby. And
that's so funny.
Yeah. And now I think Sakurai's just like, yes, that's my child. What are you going to do about it?
Exactly. Which mode is not available in the original Kirby Superstar? The Great Cave Offensive, Milky Way Wishes, Samurai Kirby, or Kirby on the Draw?
Kirby on the Draw.
This would be a 25% chance guess for me. All right.
Well, I knew it was one of those two. I couldn't remember because Kirby Superstar Ultra, I think, changed a couple things. So,
who created Kirby?
Ooh, what are my options there?
You got Mashiro Sakurai. I'm going to butcher some of these probably. Well, I can say their last names.
Yeah.
You got Kawada, Iwata, and Miyamoto.
I want to say Iwata.
Okay. And final question for this quiz. Which Kirby game features Magalore as its final boss?
And I want to say Return to Dreamland?
That's an option.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Reveal how much I know about Kirby.
Let's find out. I'm going to guess at least 7.
You got an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Does it say which ones I got wrong?
Yeah, so the one that could not be played on the original Game Boy was actually Tilt and Tumble.
Okay.
And Sakurai created Kirby.
Oh, I didn't know he would. I knew it was kind of his baby. I didn't know it was
Yeah, I thought that might have been a trick question. I wasn't
Right.
100% sure there too. Nice.
Tilt and Tumble
Okay.
was Game Boy Color. That's what it was.
You want to do the other one? I think we got
let's
time.
give it a quick shot. See if it's harder or easier.
Some of these might be repeats.
That's fine.
Because the first one is, which famous game designer is the creator of Kirby?
Oh, that's Sakurai. Oh,
You got it correct. This one's going to tell us as we go.
I like that.
What was Kirby's original name during development?
Do I have options?
Yeah, so we got Doily, Twinkle Popo, Bodie, Bodie, and Starlo.
Ooh. It's funny because at one point I knew this, but all right, now let's go with Starlo just to see.
Okay, I just want to say for the record, my gut says Twinkle Popo, but I don't know if that's
It
right.
might be Twinkle Popo, but let's...
I was right.
Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious. As revealed in a 1993 developer interview, the character was known as Twinkle Popo until the game was finished, and it was decided a name change was in order to better appeal to American kids.
Fair.
The kids probably would have liked it. It's the parents that would have been like, I am not buying you a game called Twinkle Popo.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention the American public at that specific point in time was very skeptical of a lot of Japanese things. So,
Kirby's name was chosen as a connection to which of the following? American poet Kirby Doyle, Kirby Lake, a reservoir in Texas, Sakurai's cat, or an American lawyer, John Kirby.
An American lawyer, John, yeah.
Kirby's career began on Game Boy with Kirby's Dream Land in 1992. How many original Game Boy games feature the word Kirby?
Ooh.
You got
okay.
2, 5, 4, or 3.
I'm going to go with 5.
Kirby's like white. They have a picture of the game case.
Yeah, Kirby,
He's like
Kirby
white
Dreamland.
on the game case.
He's white in that one.
5, you said?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
In order of release, Kirby's non-color Game Boy catalog consists of Dreamland, Pinball Land, Dreamland 2, Block Ball, and Star Stacker.
Yeah.
Which of the following is not an official title of a Kirby game? Kirby's Avalanche, Kirby's Dream Adventure, Kirby Mass Attack, Kirby's Ghost Trap.
Kirby's Ghost Trap.
Wrong.
Was it Dream Adventure?
Yep.
What's Ghost Trap? Hang on. I'm looking up Kirby's Ghost Trap right now.
Kirby's Avalanche was known as Kirby's Ghost Trap in Europe.
Oh.
Yeah, that's kind of tricky.
That's cool. All right. I'll let them have that on technicality, but that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's a little rough, huh? What is the name of second playable character in Kirby's Epic Yarn?
Oh, it's like Prince Fluff or something.
That's an option. One of
it's
the
that
4. Correct. According to Nintendo, what is Kirby's official height? You want the options? Or you think
give me
you
the
know?
options.
You got 20 centimeters,
I think
2
it's 20
inches, 1.5 meters, and 3 feet.
No, it's 1.5 meters, I want to say.
Your first one was right.
20 centimeters. See, in my brain, my head went 20 centimeters, and I'm like, yeah. And then as soon as I heard it, I'm like, yeah. And then I heard 1.5 meters, and I checked it out.
According to Nintendo's Japanese website, Kirby is 20 centimeters tall. The Super Smash Bros. Instruction manual also confirms his stature as 8 inches, 20.32 centimeters to be
He's
exact.
a little man, just a tiny little guy.
According to Sakurai, why was Kirby the only character able to survive the apocalypse in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
What are my options?
Your options are: he didn't. Original Kirby perished and an anti-Kirby replaced him. His Warp Star enabled him to outrun Galeem. He was able to swallow Galeem and the Master Hands, or only Kirby had a heart pure enough to survive. I feel like I remember, like after seeing these options, I have a gut.
I'm thinking it's the fourth one. The Kirby.
That's what my gut is saying too.
That also sounds like a Sakurai answer.
Oh, we were both wrong.
Was it the second one? Was it
the Warp Star? Yeah. Yeah, his Warp Star was... Sakurai explained his reasoning for why Kirby was the sole survivor at the beginning of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate World of Light campaign in his regular Famitsu column. Okay. In which Kirby game did Meta Knight first appear? We've got Kirby's Adventure, Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Pinball Land, and Kirby Superstar.
I think it's Kirby's Adventure.
Correct. And finally, Kirby Canvas Curse is better known by what name in Europe? You got Kirby Palette Power, Kirby Power Paintbrush, Kirby Fresco Fright, and Kirby's Dream Canvas. This is another European one.
Yeah, let's go with Dream Canvas.
Unfortunately,
it's
it
Power
was
Palette.
Power Paintbrush.
Oh?
Yeah, interesting. Let's see. The Wii U, what does it say? The Wii U follow-up to the DS game Kirby Canvas Curse was also renamed in Europe. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse became Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush. So it doesn't really tell us why they did that, but apparently they did it twice. So we didn't do as good on that one.
No, that one.
That's okay.
Yeah, a little bit more specific, but
still fun.
Oh yeah, good test of our Kirby knowledge.
Exactly. Well, that is about all I have for this episode, Caleb. Thank you for joining and talking Kirby. It's always a good time.
Not a problem. I also have a great time every time I'm here.
Is there anything you want to plug or shout out or mention or say or PSA before we close this thing out?
No. People can, if they want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter. I talk on there sometimes. CJ Van Ice is my Twitter handle, and that's I'm sure I'll show up again at some point.
Oh, for sure. I'll throw the link to that in the description for anybody that wants to follow Caleb. And yeah, we'll definitely have you back in the future. I'm sure there are more Nintendo games always coming out. So
that's true.
Maybe we'll get you and Dylan on the same episode at
Resident Evil 4 remake. When the Resident Evil 4 remake comes out,
that'll be the one that you two do without me.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a very good possibility. But until then, thank you everybody so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some awesome content on YouTube at Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers, and we stream on Twitch every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time at neighborhood_gamers.
We hope to see you there. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
Stay friendly, gamers.